What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is iRate Reviews, the show where I go over a comic book, its story, its art, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something to go back to the shop for or not. Today, we're going to be talking about Infamous Iron Man number 3. So, Infamous Iron Man number 3 continues the story by Brian Michael Bendis of Victor Von Doom taking over the mantle of Tony Stark's Iron Man. So this is a pretty interesting concept, but let's jump right into the story. As we continue on from last issue, what we see is Ben Grimm taking on the kind of injured Victor Von Doom, who immediately puts up a magical shield to deflect the Thing's blows. As Doom assembles his armor, he knocks him outside of the apartment and takes the conflict into the streets. However, this fierce fight kind of ends there at this point in time, simply because what we do is we wake up with the good doctor, and she has found herself in some sort of foreign bedroom, and she doesn't really know where she is, so she takes on some exploration. This is a pretty sparse kind of environment that she's in, and what does she find? She finds Victor Von Doom magically levitating in his courtyard, assembling or kind of imbuing his Iron Man armor with magical elements, because this is not your Tony Stark armor. This is Victor Von Doom's take on Tony Stark's armor, a new Iron Man, however infamous he may be. So at that point in time, what we do is we dive into her understanding of the conflict and how those things came to be. It's full page spread where essentially she asks him the question. It's just like, why, what is your purpose here? Why are you trying to do this? What is your reasoning? And that's where we dive into some very specific content about Secret Wars and Victor Von Doom's perception of what happened during that. So this might not necessarily jive with a lot of people's interpretation of what happened, but ultimately what Victor Von Doom said, that he was on a conquest for ultimate power. When he finally found it, he owned a universe, he owned an entire reality, and he basically had control over everything. However, this wasn't necessarily all it cracked up to be. He was a god, but he realized that no man could be God, and God was no man. And that's a direct quote from the book, because what we see is that even though he owned a reality, owned a universe, he was unchanged himself. And even though he created this universe in his image, he found that it was a fool's quest, an errand that was unattainable, because he did not transcend himself. He was still Victor Von Doom. He still had the same personality. He still had the same drive. And that made him, it made him quake. And this is where we kind of see where Victor kind of veers off of where the actual end of Secret Wars was, because he's thinking that it's just like he wasn't really defeated by Reed Richards. He was just like defeated by himself and how he was kind of like flawed as an individual. And that kind of shook him to his core. It's just like he doesn't remember that there's a giant-ass battle between him and Reed, and they kind of like devastated everything at the end of the Secret Wars. But you know what? That might be Brian Michael Bendis just kind of glossing over that piece of things. But what he realizes is that his ultimate conquest for power might not necessarily be his ultimate goal, and maybe it was the opposite of this very selfish kind of thing. Instead, his real goal might be to actually go out there and protect individuals. But what form would he really take? He looked to Reed, he looked to Tony Stark, he looked to these people that he considered his peers, and what their interpretation of that meant, and how that was going to help him succeed in the matter. And since he was a powerful individual, and he's been on the other side of the fence, he's been a villain for so long, he knew exactly where to find these people and how to take them out. And he felt that that was a righteous kind of motivation. But when you look at it, it's a very anti-hero kind of persona. And the doctor she's just like, yep, no, you're totally kind of crazy, and I really don't want to be around you ever again. I don't want to see you. And he just bamfs her out of there. And at that point in time, Victor realizes that this is kind of probably a pretty flawed approach to things, but it's something that he's going to continue going on with at that point in time. Immediately after that, we dive back to the Thing, and the Thing's talking to Maria Hill over the radio. He's going over the details of the fight, how he didn't really lose Victor Von Doom. He just kind of stepped out, he just kind of bamfed away. And he finds himself in Latveria, even though he knows that Victor's not going to be there. He's looking for clues and things like that until, unfortunately, we see something really odd happen to the Thing. A piece of his stone facade drops to the floor with a clang and a clutter, and it was like, oh crap, what's going to happen to Ben? And next we see that his influence, his shape, is being manipulated by a relatively well-known magician, and that would be, Victor Von Doom's mom. So she's going to make her presence known in this story in the upcoming issues, and that's really exciting. So overall, as the story's going, Brian Michael Bendis is writing a pretty good interpretation of Victor Von Doom and how he would perceive things. He's really heavy on the ego, as always. He feels like he's superior to a lot of individuals, other than acknowledging, say, like Reed Richards or Tony Stark. And he always kind of glosses over the parts where he might have failed, and it's like a really... It's very much Doom, even though it's in a different voice than what I recognize for Victor Von Doom. But even though that's the case, it's definitely something that I'm really enjoying. I was a little bit hesitant after issue number 2, but issue number 3's got me back on board for this entire concept. The other thing that's really good about this book is Alex Maleev's art. While it's not necessarily the cleanest of art. It's definitely got some grit, it's got some grime. It gives you a feel that, when we talk about art when it comes to Invincible Iron Man, the first one, the first series of this volume for Invincible Iron Man when it started out, after All New, All Different, after Secret Wars, that was David Marquez. And David Marquez's line work was clean, it was strong, it was powerful. It definitely felt glorified in a way that a hero should, where Alex Maleev's art is grimy, it's dingy, it's dirty, it's still very clean, and it's very powerful in terms of its line work, but it's got that added grit that really makes it feel a little bit more, this is somebody that you shouldn't necessarily be rooting for, but you can if you really want to. That they're the wrong side of the tracks kind of person. And I really appreciate that part about the actual overall story and the way that it's kind of presented with this art style. So this is a book that, I was a little bit on the fence about it. I was really excited about the concept, but after the first, issue, and then the second issue got a little bit weak on me. The third issue's got me back on board. So Infamous Iron Man is definitely a really good book that's coming out of Marvel Now 2.0, and it's one that I'd recommend people go and, basically check it out. It's Victor Von Doom. He's definitely got that Doom air about him, and it's really nice to see his personality fleshed out in this very anti-hero kind of persona, and I'm excited to see where this goes. Highly recommended. So that's my review for Infamous Iron Man number 3, but I want to know what you guys thought about it too, so hit me up in the comments down below, and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe right there to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.